Janine for kicking us off. After that energy, I think it's hard to match that, but we're gonna get her back on stage very soon again because you will come back and be moderating our first conversation for today. So joining Janine today is Philip Belamant, who is the CEO and co-founder of Zilch, with a mission to support financially vulnerable customers, particularly going through the cost of living crisis. And since launching in 2018, Philip has led Zilch to a unicorn status and has done so at speed, going from a startup to unicorn in just 14 months, achieving profitability and more than 3 million customers in just 2 years. His success with Zilch is built on experience, growing fintech companies in developing economies, with a belief in the power of technology to change people's lives. He has also been recognized with the 2021 UK Great British Entrepreneur of the Year Award and Scale Up Company of the Year. So it is my pleasure to invite Philip on stage to join Janine for our next session.
Phil, it is fantastic to have you here and to kick off the day and hear from really a phenomenal and inspiring entrepreneur, multiple-time entrepreneur as well. So, Phil, I think most people in the audience will know about Zilch, but if not, can you talk to me a little bit about Zilch and what is the problem that you're trying to solve?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me? All right, brilliant. So maybe we start with purpose, because we're here talking about purpose. So why do we exist? And if you look at the world today, you mentioned cost of living crisis. It's something we're all talking about now. We think this has been going on for some time. And what people don't often talk about is the ongoing consistent cost of credit to customers. And what I mean by that, let's forget home loans, let's talk about credit cards or online lending. I just want to see a show of hands. How much interest and fees do people here believe we are all paying to banks every year on an ongoing basis? So who thinks that we're paying up to £7 billion a year in fees and interest? Who thinks we're paying up to 10 billion? So we're paying £15 billion in fees and interest every single year here in the UK. If you zoom that out to the United States, so Zilch is live across the US and the UK, it's $150 billion a year customers are paying in fees and interest. This is a made-up number, right? This is not for the products and services. This is just the number going to the bank, all right? So just to give you one last number, it's $400 million a day. By the end of today, it would be another $400 million we've all paid in fees and interest. So this is the problem Zilch is trying to solve. So our mission is to eliminate the cost of consumer credit for good, all right? And ultimately, that's where the name comes from. We want that $150 billion to be Zilch, zero, all right? So that's really what we're about. That's the problem that we're trying to solve. And so effectively, Zilch gives free and affordable credit to millions of people, but it's not necessarily what we do, it's how we do it that's quite unique. And so what we've done is we found a way to earn revenue from the ad and marketing budgets of brands, and we use that revenue to offset the cost of credit to customers in the mass market. And that means millions of people can enjoy credit today from Zilch at a price point typically reserved for the wealthy, which has never been done at scale before. Maybe to elaborate on that just quickly, if you look at the old school way of lending, so a lot of credit card companies have been around since the 1950s. And what's interesting is the business model has never changed, all right? The model has always been, in the mass market, overcharge people who are repaying you, so charge them 30 to 100+% APR, and that is going to cover the people who default and make you a margin. And the reason these companies did this is not necessarily because they're bad people. They just were unsophisticated businesses. They didn't have open banking. They didn't have AI. They didn't have great underwriting. And so they just did a poor job of this. What we've done is completely reimagine that. So the whole concept is we've said to ourselves, why are people borrowing money? It sounds like an innocuous question, right? People are buying things. They don't borrow money and put it in a bank account, surprisingly. And so if they're buying something, there is another party involved. Someone else is benefiting from this loan. So how do we include them in the transaction? And if you look at the parties who are selling, between 4 and up to 10% of every sale is going to marketing and advertising. So what we did is we said, well, hang on, there's this weird situation going on in the world. You have brands paying Google, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, billions of pounds and dollars in marketing. They get in front of us all, we click the advert, and then we pull out our credit cards and pay quite literally billions of pounds in interest and fees to credit card companies to buy the goods. Why? It's inefficient. And so what Zilch does is we merge these two things. So we've said, let's cut out the middleman. Let's introduce a buyer to a seller at the point of highest intent, payment. And we will then earn the revenue from the ad budgets of the brands. This costs the brands much less because they're not paying for clicks and impressions that don't convert. We take that advertising revenue, we subsidize the cost of credit to the customer, in most cases to absolutely zero. 0% interest, no fees, and no late fees. And that's effectively what's going on with Zilch and why it's quite unique today, which is why we've saved customers now over £300 million and counting in the last 12 months alone in fees and interest.
And it's phenomenal. And you did also that initiative with the ads, I remember as well, which was incredibly powerful. Phil, let's talk a little bit about the market right now and what you see happening. I think you've done a fantastic job in terms of explaining why Zilch is so important, so special as well. Where do you see the overarching market of BNPL going? And what are some of the key areas that you think we need to work on as an industry, but also bring in the regulators and government as well?
I mean, you mentioned the word regulation, obviously. What's interesting in the space is there's a lot of providers in BNPL, and some of which have built really interesting and amazing companies. But of course, we do have this issue that a lot of these providers are unregulated. So Zilch today is the only major player in this country that is regulated by the FCA. And we keep saying, guys, we're not calling for regulation. A lot of these companies are putting billboards up saying, we want regulation. What we're saying is, we don't need regulation, we have it. We need to close the loophole. We need to close the exemption that a lot of these companies are operating in, and that will force them into the regulation. We don't need to rewrite something from the 1970s. It's not necessary, right? We already have it. Zilch is operating as a regulated firm today on a profitable margin. It's possible. We don't need to worry about that. We just need people to be regulated. So let's close the loophole and drive these companies there. So we think that's the direction of travel that's needed. But policies, et cetera, in this country, we certainly feel convinced that's the direction of travel.
So, and on that note, you had anywhere in the world to start a company, and in fact you have at that global international experience and background as well. Why did you choose the UK?
It sort of all leans into a bit of this. So if you think about the UK, there's just this diverse mix of talent. That's a great starting position. Great schools, great universities, creating fantastic, amazing, smart people that are building great businesses, and that's a big draw. So even for myself, coming from South Africa 10 years ago, I thought I have to be in the UK. It's just such a phenomenal ecosystem. And then we've got policy here, regulation, pools of capital that you can access, which I still believe are market leading. You think about the FCA sandbox. This is really world leading. I mean, we built our business with a regulator. I don't know any country that you would say that. People would probably laugh at you. And that's quite phenomenal to see. And then you think of access to capital. We have to take a pause and appreciate the UK is the second largest pools of capital on the planet, right? So everything from SEIS, EIS, high net worth, ultra high net worth, family office, pension funds, PE. There's so many deep pools of capital here to fund companies and help them grow.
So, in terms of what's next for Zilch and looking forward, product-wise, what are you really excited about right now?
So, I mean, the big buzzword that everyone's talking about is AI, right? Machine learning, AI. And we kind of look at this and we think, well, we should have been talking about it for some time. If you're in the space and you're not using some type of AI or machine learning, that's odd. But for us, we think about the world, and we like to compare our business to a company most people don't expect us to compare it to. So we compare our business a little bit to Tesla. So if you think about Tesla, car data company, and you think about what they've done, people think, oh, they're selling cars, but we all now know, oh, okay, actually what's going on is they found a more interesting vehicle to attract a lot more demand. So let's move away from combustion engines, let's move to EVs and make them cool. Let's go directly to consumers and avoid dealerships. Why? So we can collect first-party data and we can train an AI model so we can solve autonomous driving. And we can solve autonomous driving means we can fix road accidents, we can avoid deaths, and of course there's many other use cases. What's interesting about finance is that people sometimes don't understand how bad it is, right? So last year in the United Kingdom, there were 130,000 road accidents. Do you know how many people went bankrupt last year in the United Kingdom? 130,000 people, right? So what's going on is you have 130,000 people a year going bankrupt. You have the rest of us paying 15 billion pounds in interest and fees. This is not a great situation. And so Zilch, similarly to Tesla, we want to go direct to customers, not through merchants like point-of-sale finance, BNPL, or providers. We want to go direct to customers. Why? So we can collect first-party data and we can train our AI models to better underwrite and serve those customers. And of course, how do we attract customers in demand? We use advertising to subsidize the cost of credit, which is our equivalent EV versus combustion engine. It's credit, but much better than you've ever had it before. And so with all of this, what we intend to do is, today, we're giving you flexibility. You can pay now, you can pay later, or even later. You can open the app and change your mind and go backwards and convert that to something else. You've got choice. But moving forward with all the data we have, what we collect in a year, our nearest competitor will take 5 years to collect in data. So we're using that to train our AI engine to say, how do we move from choice to helping you with recommendations? How should you spend this next amount of money to best suit your cash flow today and in the future, and make sure you stay away from financial trouble? And that we're kind of calling co-pilot. And the end state we're hoping to get to will be autopilot. So our autonomous version of driving, which is every time you tap and pay with our product, we look in real time at open banking, your affordability, all the data points we have, and we choose the best product at the best price for you at that time to manage your cash flow and keep you out of trouble. The last point I'll just make is, everyone's been talking about finance and the fact financial literacy is 8 years old in this country. You cannot solve this problem by trying to force financial literacy down people's throats at school or after that. No one cares. You have to fix it a different way, and we think we're doing that.
Okay. So I've got one last question for you, because it summarizes everything, and I've got to say I'm excited to see the next chapters for Zilch. What more do you think is needed, or what more can we do as a sector to really be that force for good?
I think, to be honest, regulation is the point we keep mentioning, and we certainly need that. I think also making sure that the LSE and government is creating great incentive for us to build great British businesses, grow them, keep them here, list them here, and then internationally scale from there. So I would say policy around helping that ecosystem thrive, and of course regulation so people understand what the rules are. Everyone plays by the rules, and we cause as little consumer detriment as possible along the way.
Right. Fab. Phil, thank you so much for sharing your insights and for kicking off our forum today. Thanks for being here.
It's a pleasure. Thanks, Janine. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Appreciate it.